Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to talk about emerging funds and fundraising for emerging funds. Anna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So, okay, where in the world are you located?
Today in Los Angeles.
Okay, gotcha. So on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. And so let's just say, I come out and visit and we're at a coffee shop there. And I introduce you to someone and I go, this is Anna. And they go, hey, cool. What do you do? Well, how do you typically respond to that?
Well, first of all, depends on who I talk to. But usually most of the times I say that I help people build meaningful relationships that end up in capital raise.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. So they go, oh, you got to tell me more. So we grab a cup of coffee and we all sit around the table and we go, we want to hear your story. Kind of tell us about, tell us your story. How'd you get started in this game in capital raising?
I started a while ago. It's been 12 years since I've been in tech. And a long time ago, I discovered such a cool thing as startups. It was back in the day in Ukraine when people were afraid to pitch because they were afraid that their ideas will be stolen. And they were very involved in tech, but they didn't know that you can build a startup and make it a unicorn. So I had a pretty cool job of inspiring people to build tech companies. And obviously part of that was finding the best companies to invest in through the venture studio I was part of.
Got it. All right. So you're in the Ukraine. And at first in the Ukraine, why was people so afraid of their ideas being stolen? Like kind of like paint a picture of what it was like during the time when you got started in startups.
Well, first of all, you have to understand the issue of emerging markets like Ukraine and Russia and Latin America. There's very little IP rights there. So the ideas and companies get stolen and you have no right to fight back. So that's just a general notion. But also you have to understand that the industry was so young that people just didn't know how it works. And the culture that is normal and regular in Silicon Valley of, paying forward, sharing, building your community, it was very rare. It was non-existing in that culture, in that mindset. So, we were not blessed, unfortunately, back in the day, was that approach and that mentality around business.
So you worked with a venture group over there, a venture studio?
It was a venture studio. I mean, it was not even called venture studio back in the day. Like now, I can say it was a venture studio, but it was a cool team. They've built a successful multi-million-dollar company called Audico. Audico, they were doing ringtones, if you remember what the ringtones are. And, they made some money on it and they've had amazing development team. So they're like, hey, we have some money. We have some cool engineers. Why don't we look for cool founders with cool ideas and help them with the product expertise and capital?
So how did you get a job there? You just walked one day and like, hey, I want to make ringtones and invest in businesses. Like, talk us through that.
That was actually a pretty crazy story. I was working for the company. It's the biggest retail of Ukraine. It's sort of like a Ukrainian Amazon called Rozetka. And I was so obsessed with the product and the team and the tech that we had that I was on one of the industry conferences. And, I was like a little girl. I was 19, but, I always had, as we say, a long tongue, which is like person that talks a lot. And I end up in this group of men and I'm standing there, 19 years old girl, and they're all talking about different businesses. And they started saying bad things about the tech that we've been building. And I was like, wait a second, you have no idea all the capabilities and capacities we have, and I was just defending it so bad that and I didn't know even who those people were because, I was an employee of some company. And one of the guys who was in the circle, he came to me and he's like, you're going to work for me. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you going to work for my company? I was like, no. It was very funny. So long story short, we ended up taking a train back to the town we were, our companies were in. And throughout the very long conversation in the train and a bottle of cognac, he convinced me to work in his company by, basically saying, I'm going to give you 3 times the salary, and you will be the first startup evangelist of Ukraine. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm not religious. So that's how I end up in, in startups and venture.
Yeah. So being the first evangelist, non-spiritual evangelist in Ukraine, I want you to go back to when you guys are sitting there and he goes, "You're going to work for my company." Say it in the language that he said it. Like, try to be as close to the way he said it as possible. Can you do that?
Do you want me to say it in Russian?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, he said, "Ты будешь работать на меня," which just sounds almost like mafia, right?
Yeah, I like it. And that means you're going to work for me.
Yeah.
And then he made you an offer you can't refuse, right? Like
exactly.
And then you're wound up on now you're on a train drinking cognac, and you became Ukraine's first evangelical startup person, non-spiritual. All right. So like when you told people, like, you and I go back in time, and we see this 19-year-old, girl who's super talkative, and she's just telling these people off. I don't care if they're investors or whatever. She's going, no, our tech is good, defending the startups, right? If you could go back and you could give yourself a piece of advice, that 19-year-old girl who's just going to town on these investors and business owners, what would you tell yourself then?
You're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, now say that in Russian.
Ты очень крутая. Продолжай быть собой.
Yeah,
Basically, be yourself.
That is cool. Be yourself. I like that. All right, so you're doing good. Keep on going. And then you said be yourself. Are there any, now here I am in the US, right? Like, so you made your way over to the US. You got to share that story. But before you do that, are there things like in Russian, like in terms of startups and the investment community, are there sayings in Russia that you brought over here and you said that and people had no clue what you were saying?
I remember that happening, but I've been here for 6 years and my brain now thinks in English. So it's very hard to even get back to those, common phrases. So when I go back to Ukraine or Russia, I'm struggling because all my verbiage, all my startup language is in English. And startups, it's funny because, for example, right now, I don't know if you're aware of Telegram. It's messaging platform, Russian, and it has its own unique features. So, for example, voice message called голосовуха, which is like a super Russian, word, which is like a slang word. And then there is this video messages in a circle, and they are called кругляшки. So it's like a very cool things about the language.
Yeah. All right. So when you dream, right? Do you dream in English or Russian?
Oh, that's a good question. I think naturally I dream in English, but then I try to translate things for myself in Russian, and it hits differently.
Got it. All right. So back to your story. You're on a train. You're becoming the first evangelistic, startup person in Ukraine. Kind of walk us through the journey of going from working in this, the business to being the evangelist to now helping people raise capital and such. Kind of walk us through your journey.
Well, first of all, I'm extremely grateful to the person that hired me, Andre, because I had no professional skills for the job that I was hired to do. And I had to build it very fast from scratch and figure it out, and being able to get in rooms with, investors in funds and entrepreneurs. And I was so young and so lost, just unexperienced. And I think now I'm thinking back, I started writing an article for LinkedIn. How did I lose $1 billion in my network's potential? Because I didn't capitalize on those relationships back in the day. I didn't know how. I was meeting so many people. A lot of them right now are founders of $1 billion companies, but I just couldn't, I haven't had the tools to, convert this relationship and deepen these relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, that is wow. How I lost a billion because and you spend a lot of time in investor relations and emerging funds, like helping them raise capital, right? Teaching them how to do it, doing it with them, doing it for them, right? So you spend a lot of time in investor relations and like looking back, you see all the relationships because as a in IR, you spend all this time getting an investor and then you on to the next one and then you get an investor. Where do you think you could have been if you managed those relationships, kept them, nourished them, kept on bringing back, new deals? Like, what do you think would be different in our conversation today?
Well, I definitely believe that I would have a couple unicorns in my portfolio
Yeah.
if I did manage those relationships.
Yeah. All
So,
right.
I mean, I think it's all the journey, and now I have the eye and the skill set to see the upcoming unicorns. But it's interesting, that it took me 10 years to be here.
Yeah. All right. So talk to us about the first big win. So you're in Ukraine still, right? Talk to us about the first big win that you did and what happened in your life.
I would say back in the day, my first big win was when we organized a meetup for it was called Hackers and Founders. It was a branch of the Hackers and Founders from Silicon Valley that we were doing in Ukraine, and we had 300 entrepreneurs and investors who came. And funny enough, I've connected naturally two founders and then investor, and they created a company years later that's now is in Silicon Valley. It's called PetCube. They've raised, I think, by now more than $10 million. They're growing. They're like pre-IPO. And it's crazy to think, that the connection that I've put together like 8 years ago resulted in people moving and building company here and succeeding.
Yeah. Isn't that such a cool feeling? Like seeing like I set the spark. You're a connector. You and I are similar. Like we see people and you're like, oh, you should talk to
Yeah.
so and so, right? But seeing like the birth of something good that happens, like, isn't that like how does that impact your life and what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing?
I think it took me a while to understand my true nature. It's like you're saying, I'm a connector. It took me a while to understand I'm a connector. That's why I spent 6 years building startups. Like I wanted to be a builder. I wanted to be a CEO. But funny enough, throughout this whole time, I've been putting people together just naturally. Investors was the company was the founder, company was the advisor, investor was another investor. And then I'm seeing, oh, wow, they're co-investing, or wow, these people are doing business together now. So it feels amazing when you see the potential of two people and you can see how they can create, something I'm sure you also talk a lot about is creating that shared value
Yeah.
in their lives and in the world.
Yeah. All right. So you're back in Ukraine and you had some cool events and you put together some things. Like, how did you go from there to here? Like, how did you cross the big pond, the big ocean? Like, how'd you wind up in the US?
Oh, that's it's like building a startup. You're driving through a desert in a burning car without fuel. you
And no
know?
AC, right?
Yeah, I see,
Yeah.
of course. Well, I got so excited on inspiring people to build their startups that I was like, I mean, I can't be doing that if I don't have my own startup, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I started, and it was very easy to get the team together. Everybody wanted to be a startup founder back in the day. I think now everybody wants to be an investor. Then everybody wanted to be a startup founder. So I got a team. We came up with the idea, which was way ahead of its time. We built a product. We launched it. We got some first organic traffic, and it was very exciting. We had to kill it 9 months later, but it was a cool first shot.
Yeah. But you got in the game. Now, you said that you've been a part of a few startups and there was this mindset like you had to be a startup, right? You had to be in the startup. And then as you learned more about who you are as a person and the value you can bring and the shared value you could bring, you realize that, you know, maybe not being in the startup is your best spot. How did you learn that?
You know, it took me a while and it was painful. So I've had as a startup CEO, because I've had a product background, you know, I've built quite a few products and I've had a, you know, small win in gaming I sold the company to my partners and on Russian market. Then I moved to Silicon Valley with another startup. I started it with a co-founder. We've built a product. And then what happened is a new wave of software came and I was like, oh wow, this company is at seed stage, but I kind of want to do a new thing, you know. So I started a new thing, which was in HR tech, with another co-founder, and you know, we raised seed for that. And I was like, I kind of want to do a new thing, you know. And I started a blockchain company, also in hiring, decentralized hiring platform. And you know, I've raised capital for that, also like seed, and with that we've burned money so bad. Like we were just, it was that wild time, you know, 2017 2018.
Yeah.
And I fell flat on my face. I lost money of investors. We didn't build a product, we didn't go to market, and it was a time to step back and reevaluate, you know, what am I doing in life, what am I best at, and what is my true purpose.
Mm. Let's talk about purpose. So you had a painful event, right? You lost money for investors, and that in itself, right? You could lose your own money, and it's painful. Lose money for someone else, that's a deeper level of pain, right? So here you are, you just had you burnt it down, you know, 9 months later, or whatever the company was, and you're reflecting. What resources, what books, what people, like what advice were you receiving? Like how did you step out of that funk, or did you, you know, like talk to us through that transition time?
You know, it was I do consider it's the darkest time of my life, um and also the most powerful time.
Mm.
I isolated myself. I left California. I ended up in Salt Lake City. You know, it's like winter, dark, cold. I'm by myself. I have no friends around me. But I think that's what was so powerful, because every day I was religious about it. I've had a routine. I had to meditate. I had to do my visualization. I read a book. I, you know, like was writing down what are the things that I learned. How can I leverage my failure into my advantage? It took me 2.5 months to get through that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and also like a lot of people came to me, and something, I remember a conversation with a friend of mine with whom he also was a CEO, but, you know, I lost like 300K. He lost 3 million for his investors. And we were on a call and he's like, I was like, I'm a failure. You know, I failed people who believed in me. And he's like, you don't understand, you're not. You should go back to your investors and you should have a conversation with them. You should face it and you should be honest about what you learned. And this is a small failure. They understand these risks. They understand investment is a risk. But if you manage the relationship through this crisis, you're going to win in a long game. And that changed my life.
Mm. So what did you do after that?
I called. I had to call.
All right, let's role play. Let's role play. So I'm an investor. You just lost 300K of my money, and we're sitting down at a coffee shop.
Hi, Josh.
Hi. Hello there, Anna.
Oh, yeah. Hello. I have to tell you that we just had to shut down the company. And unfortunately, you're probably going to hate me for this, and you will want to take another call after this meeting from me. But we lost all your money.
Hmm.
What would you say to that?
You know, that that moment of silence, right? Like, so as a, here's how I would approach it as an investor,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, here's how I would approach it, because there's good, bad, and the ugly, right? You have the investor who's the experienced investor, the LP who's been in the game. He's the angel investor of venture capital. Like, they go, okay, like, tell me about it. Let's walk through the, good, bad, and the ugly. Walk me through it. What did we
Yeah.
learn? What is it salvageable? Is there any, IP that we could sell off? Are there any opportunities? What's going on with the other investors, right? Like, so that's how, like, my mind would approach it. Now, how many investors did you have to make phone calls to?
It was three, and all of them were professional investors. So it was, I would say it was easier
Yeah.
because it was not, like a life savings of my best friend,
Yeah. And
which,
I think that's one of the benefits. Sorry to cut you off. I think that's one of the
mm-hmm.
benefits of working with a professional investor. As long as you're honest with them, you're upfront, you're coming to them. I think that it changes the conversation a little bit to make it more positive. Now, all right. So then they go, all right. So walk me through, and they ask you one question, right? And you get an opportunity to take your friend's advice, who just lost 3 million, and you take his advice, and you say one thing to that investor. What's that one thing that you said to lean into it and to, like, continue with the relationship rather than just say goodbye, I lost your money? What did you do?
I don't remember exact words I used because I was under so much stress.
Yeah, you probably
you know?
like blacked out, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think my hands were shaking, my voice was shaking. So obviously the way I would say it right now, it's not going to be the same. But the general idea that I translated through my conversation was that um, you invested in the early stage. It means you invested in me as the person. I know there was a company, there was a promise, there was an idea, IP, tech, but first of all, you invested in me. And I can still bring you a return. So basically the agreement we had with all the investors is that I will keep updating them of what's going on in my life, in my business, and that when I have my new venture, they will be part of it. And that's basically, how we ended on a good note. So it's not, I said that, I will obviously make sure that you will have unique, preferred terms and you can get this money back. But that's where I think the market is going, is investing in people much more than investing in startups.
See, I love that because, if so, I'm going to sit in their seat, right? Like, and I go, wow, you're right. I invested in you, and that loss, that product, that business, whatever, I'm going to look at you and go, you came to me, you were transparent, you talked to me, and you go, you invest me. And I go, okay, now that was 300K. It's a lot of money, right? No lie, it's a lot of money. However, you're probably not going to make the same mistakes round two, right? So now I have a vested interest in you. Now I'm going, all right, cool. What are we going to do next, right? So then what did you do next from there?
Well, it took me a while to kind of get back on my feet. It took me, I think, about a year before we started Get Funded Tools, now Alinity. And, we started small. We started by helping entrepreneurs do investor presentations. And it started naturally. My friends started coming to me. They're like, Anna, you're pretty badass at pitching and your presentations are really cool. Can you help us? It's like, of course. So I love companies that start from, your close circle and people really asking for help. This is the best thing you can do in the world, is really help someone.
Yeah. So you started up this, and talk to us about starting this thing. What did you do different with it? It was Get Funded Tools, and now it's transforming into Ally. How do you pronounce it?
Alinity.
Alinity. Very cool. Talk to us about, like, what did you do different when you launched this business?
Well, first of all, my main point was I don't want to build a tech company. That was the original, thought. Second thought was I don't want to raise capital for it. I want to do it. I want to bootstrap. I want to generate revenue, and I want to make sure we're solving a problem. And even now, to this day, our calls with the team always start with the question, how can we bring value? Because if you can run your company on the idea of bringing the value to a very specific audience, that's where I think success is coming from. And it's not linear. It's not just like do 1, 2, 3, and you're gonna get 4. It doesn't really work like that. So to your answering your question, like how did we end up here? We started with the pitch decks, and now we're helping venture funds running their investor relations and building fundraising operations. And we obviously have access to amazing deals from these venture funds. So it's very, irregular way how we end up here.
Yeah, so cool. Now, why did you choose bootstrap versus raising capital?
Well, I think I had a PTSD from the previous experiences. I think, when you're starting a business, and especially in early stages, and this is advice I give to every founder who is in like idea/MVP stage, when they come to me, they're like, oh, but we need to raise capital. I'm like, no, you don't. You need to bring value to the market. And when you have the proof, which is, a market fit, like early market fit, then you can go to the investor. Because a lot of the startups that I've been building, they were very futuristic, and they will take, a couple years for the market to be ready for it. But I think there is just so much fulfillment, at least for me, maybe not for everybody, but for me, in seeing people using your services, your product, and getting the transformation of their lives and businesses.
Yeah. I love the model of, funding by clientele, right? Like, so, I could go raise money and build an idea, and I've tried that. Or I could build something that serves, that makes money, and then go raise money if needed, or just keep on serving more, bigger, better, have a value ladder, whatever. So, all right, give us some success stories, right? So you've helped raise some capital. Like, if you had to look at your career doing this, about how much money have you helped raise?
Well, it's hard to say exact number, because some of the people we worked with, we would do their deck, we would train them in pitching. And, I also do it within 500 startups. So I'm a mentor. So if I look into just the pitch decks and, people that I mentored and worked with, I would say it will go above 100 million mark, because a lot of these companies now are, approaching their Series B, and obviously some rounds are like, 10, 20 million rounds. In the early stages, I would say was the closest people that I worked with, the range would be like around 10 million. So, average startup in that stage raises like 200, 500 seed round or angel round, so it's that. And when it comes to funds, you asked me last time we spoke, we worked with 2 funds so far, and now they're approaching the 30 million mark being raised.
30 million.
Yes.
Where were they at when they started with you?
So there are usually it's a second fund, or they had some form of previous investment experience. So, and I'm mentioning that because that makes a difference. When you're just raising your very, very first fund, it's most of your fundraising is based on your purely your personality. When it comes to a second fund, that's when you can have your personality plus some return to show. So it makes a difference. So they usually come to us with the problem of, I just had my first fund and it's either 1 million or 10 million. And I've raised my first fund from my friends and my family and my closest circle. But now I'm going after my second fund, and I really need to expand my network of potential LPs. And usually, they might have either just opening the round, or they had like some commitments, like 1-2 million out of 10 if it's a 10 fund, or like 2-3 if it's a larger fund, like 20 million plus. And basically what they have to do, they have to accelerate and put on rails their investor relations process.
So you and I are hanging out, we finish up at the coffee shop having conversations about emerging funds, and you're like, we're absolutely crushing it over here. Now we have startups, we have funds, right? Emerging funds, first time fundraisers, first time VC groups or whatever. And then we have, experienced funds and fund to funds and et cetera. Like, how did you, out of all these people, choose emerging funds as a group to serve?
That's such a great question.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, as an asset class, emerging VC funds right now have the highest IRR among all other asset classes. You can, there is a very cool research done by PitchBook that is available online that I recommend everybody listening and watching to go and look up. So emerging fund managers, right now, there are hundreds of fund managers running into the market. And a lot of them have been entrepreneurs before. So they are very lean. They're not coming from the, financial world. They're coming from like grinding world.
Yeah.
And they learn fast. So, and in their cases, the value of relationship is very high. So if you compare value of relationship for the early stage startup, for example, right? It's usually very transactional. It's like, I have 1 million early stage funds that are deploying capital in my type of deal. All I want to get money and get back to my building my startup. I don't really care how my relationship will develop, unfortunately. Then we have later stage companies like Series A, Series B, and it's also a very different game. For them, the value of the relationship is becoming very high because the air gets thinner the more you raise. But founders are still, a lot of them disregard the value of relationships. But and then again, fundraising, it's not their core of their business. But when it comes to VC funds, fundraising, it's literally the core of their business.
Yeah, it is. It's all about relationships. The relationships that, you have GPLP, right? And the relationship between those is vital for a fund. So I shouldn't use acronyms because there might be someone listening in. GPLP, kind of explain what those are to the community.
So when you're looking into the fund structure, it's usually 1 or 2 GPs, which is a general partner. It's somebody who makes all the investment decision, and it's usually the person raising capital. Then sometimes we have venture partners. It's people who come in with the capital and they're also helping to manage the fund. And then LPs, are limited partners, are the people who are primarily putting money in the fund, but they don't have a say in a deal sourcing and in the investment decisions.
Got it. All right. So you and I, we just did a big deal. Like, what does the perfect day look like in the life of Anna, like in terms of business? Like, what does task and duties and like what does the perfect day look like for you?
I would say it's just a lot of calls and a lot of very warm, meaningful conversations with incredible people. And, my favorite type of calls are the ones that are resulting in a deal, in a collaboration.
Yeah.
And also, one of my approaches to business and to life, like I want to do business only with the people to whom I want to give a hug. So that's my, internal radar. Yeah. And so far, our clients, our partners, my team, all the people that are absolutely incredible. So my perfect day is just spending time with them and doing deals.
Yeah. I love people and deals. Like, it sounds like you're same and you're a connector. You might be like my twin sister from the Ukraine though.
Right? Yeah. As you said, God, family, and deals.
God, family, deals. That exactly. All right. So, as you're going through and building this, what does the future of your business look like?
There are several directions we might go into, and I would say right now we're choosing on when do we want to integrate technology in our process, because right now we're doing consulting and services for our clients, but inevitably we will need a software. And right now there are several companies that are building solutions in the industry, but they're not quite what we need. And I'm trying to, not go into software for as long as I can. But, if we will be in a position of there is nobody else who can do it except us, we will do it, obviously. So we'll see. We either will become, like a McKinsey of investor relations, or we will become, McKinsey of investor relations plus the software.
Plus the software. Yeah. All right. So you and I get to go into the future, right? We're having a conversation with the future Anna. Am I allowed to ask a lady how old are you? Are we allowed to
I'm
ask
31.
that? Okay, got it. So I just turned 40. All right. So we're you're a lot younger. So we go in the future though, and we get to have a conversation with our future selves, right? What advice do you think your future self would give you today? Like 20 years down the line. So 50-year-old Anna.
I would say it's to slow down. I think for everyone who is a type A personality, people who have like million projects, they wake up at like 7, some people wake up at 5 a.m. and they instantly jump into, calls, meetings, and often it creates anxiety and feeling of fear of missing out. I would say that the most valuable thing to do, and I'm trying to give this advice to myself as we speak, but I think if I'll be like 41, it will be even more, I will listen to it even more, is when you're slowing down, you just have so much more mental space to choose the right people, to choose the right deals to focus on, and then sharpen your energy, sharpen your focus, and that will deliver more results. So trying not to be busy, trying to be the opposite, trying to be available and present.
That is incredible advice from your future self. Thank you, future self, Anna.
Thank you, future self.
Yeah. All right. So for people out there, they're going to college, or maybe they got out, and they want to explore being in investor relations. What does it take to be a good investor relations person, IR?
Well, the funny thing about IRs that it's everything. Yeah. People right now, we're running investor relations community, and we have a monthly meetup, and we have investor relations managers from small funds, from startups, from funds who have like $1 billion under management, and all those people have completely different backgrounds, and they're playing very different functions in their day-to-day life. So if you are interested in investor relations, you can, I would say the good way to separate it is to understand if you want to be a front-facing IR or you want to be a back-end facing IR. And the way to understand is if you are more extroverted, you love talking to people, you like sales, you like closing, you like negotiation, you like relationship building, this is more a front-facing IR. And this is the skill set you should develop. If you love systems, you love processes, you love data, you like analytics, you like funnels and structure, this is a good skill set for the back-end facing IR. Both are crucial, both are needed. Just, find your angle and explore.
Yeah. Which one do you fit better in?
Oh, I'm definitely front-facing.
Yeah. Keep me out of the back end, like systems, processes, financial modeling, projection. Like I'm terrible at that.
That's why I have 2 partners.
Yeah.
They're both extremely amazing in systems. So I'm just like running around and bringing different opportunities, and they're the people taking them down the funnel and processing them.
So smart. So smart. So tell us about your partners and say something incredible about each one of them.
They are, the way I want to tell you a quick story about how I met one of my partners.
Go for it.
His name is Artem. He right now runs the back end of IR for us and for our clients. And the way he discovered me, or I discovered him, I guess, he went on my YouTube channel. He watched every single video on the channel. He commented on the videos. And then he came back to my direct message on the Facebook. And he's like, listen, Anastasia, I watched everything you're doing. You're absolutely fascinating. I believe in you. I believe in your vision. I don't have venture experience, but I've been building businesses before and I've sold offline businesses before. Whatever it takes, I want to work for you. Give me whatever work you don't want to do. I'll do it. And I'm willing to work for free. I was like, that's so easy. It's hard to say no to. Mm-hmm. So fast forward a year, and like he became like my assistant. So after a year of working together, I was like, wow, this person is absolutely fascinating. He is, seeing connections even within my network that I can't see myself. He knows my network better than I do. And I was like, all right, I mean, you're not an assistant, you're a partner. And, now we are, he has equity in the company and he is absolutely crucial part to who we are. And my partner, Maria worked her entire life as an IR without knowing she's an IR. It was called more like a business development, I guess, or, it was like sales / business development, but she worked within the funds. And then she ended up working for Pantera Capital. To those who don't know, it's one of the largest blockchain focused funds, I think 2.2 or 2.4 billion under management across several funds. And she ended up working in the capital formation team. So with all the background she had and seeing how Pantera runs their fundraising engine, she was mind blown. And when she exited, she left the company, she was like, wow, like this kind of approach, the systematic approach, should be spread across earlier stage funds and earlier stage companies. So the foundation of what we started doing as Get Funded Tools and now Alinity was inspired a lot by the way Pantera runs their investor relations.
Very cool. So as we're going through this, we just finished coffee. We talked about the past, the present, the future. We've had a conversation with the future, Anna. And, the person that we were hanging out with, they're getting ready to leave. And you go, before you leave, let me give you something. And it's a resource. It's a book. It's some resource because they're interested in being, getting into the capital raising space, starting up a VC fund and investing in people. And like, they're just a cool person and you want to give them something. What book or resource would you point them to?
As a resource, and I don't want to come off as like too much self-promotion, but it is a free resource that we've put together. If you are thinking to raise capital for your fund or for your company, we have 2 checklists of all the things you need to prepare before going into the fundraising cycle. So for the funds, it's a pretty extensive list. It has more than 40 items on it, which gives you a good understanding of how to prepare for its best to be able to succeed. It's available on our website. I'll share the link with you. And if you are an investor relations person who wants to explore a career in this field, we also have a free community that you can join, where you can learn from investor relations managers of the most successful funds out there. And it is a very warm community of incredible people that support each other.
That is so cool. So I appreciate you. I can't even talk. Yeah. So if are there any questions? It took a while to say. Are there any questions that I should have asked you or that you wish I would have asked during this interview?
No, I think we did an amazing job. You're such a natural at hosting podcasts, and I really enjoyed the conversations we had.
I appreciate you. So if someone's, wants to do a deal with you, connect with you, follow your work, what's a good place for them to connect and do a deal with you?
Just go to LinkedIn. It's Anastasia Rivodeaux, and you can see me, you can see my team. And if you want to learn a little bit more of who we are, we have YouTube channel. It's Get Funded with Anastasia Rivodeaux, and we're inviting also amazing people there. Where hopefully we'll have also interview with Josh, because I've been able to speak too much and haven't asked yours about your story. So this is also the place to kind of learn more about our method, our clients, our approach, and just see if that's for you.
Very cool. Now, in the Russian accent, the guy who said, you're gonna work for me, say that one again. That was good.
Ты будешь работать на мою компанию.
Exactly. So for the fellow deal makers in the audience, if you're, as always, reach out to our guests and say thank you for being on the show. If you're an emerging fund looking to raise some capital, or if you're an IR and you want to be a part of a community of IR professionals, both front end, front facing, more of the, the outgoing connectors, or the back end, right? Systems, processes. You love spreadsheets and you love, all the tech behind that. My ask to you is that you reach out to our guests, say thank you, but then find a way to get connected and do a deal. That's the purpose and mission of the show. And if you're working on a deal, want to talk about it here on the show, maybe as a guest, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all next episode. See you guys.